Oh, shoot.
What?
I don't know what kind of co-host you are today. I haven't thought about it yet.
Let's see how you do on the spot, buddy. If I'm lovely.
You're done.
Don't even.
You're walking off the set.
Yeah.
Welcome to Emotionships, where we talk about the real reason everything happens for a reason. I am your host, Charlie Carroll, along with my competitive co-host, Mallory Redmond.
Whatever. First of all, I think you've done that one before.
I think I have. I think you're right, but you are very competitive. You're deserving of that title more than once.
Thanks. I guess. I don't know.
Welcome to the program, episode 41. Big episode today.
How do you feel about 41? Is that your age?
Yeah, that's right where I'm at.
How do you feel about your age?
I'm getting ready to take another telomeres test to see what my biological age is.
Okay.
We have a calendar age, ladies and gentlemen, and we have a biological age.
So you've already taken it?
I have in the past, yes.
And?
I was 9 years younger biologically than my calendar age.
That's good,
Yeah.
I guess.
Well, I mean, again, we tend to process age in this country off of the calendar, but biologically, every day is not the same. That's why we talk about energy and motion all the time.
True.
Yeah, so getting ready to do that. That's a blood test. You can do that at Body Garage Dayton. Speaking of Body Garage Dayton.
Oh, yeah.
The boss,
Dun, dun, dun.
who really makes things happen over there at Body Garage Dayton, Leah Flora, it's her birthday today.
Happy birthday, Leah.
Yeah, you know what? I thought we could try to call her and just wish her a happy birthday.
Do you think she's going to answer your call?
Well, that's a good question.
Okay.
She's also Mal's trainer. Are we allowed to say that?
Yeah. Oh, let's give her a plug. Hold on. I just can never remember the order of her. You can follow Leah on Instagram.
Yes.
Flora Fit Official.
Oh.
Flora Fit Official.
I did not know.
You don't follow her?
No, I do.
Oh.
I just remembered it as being Flora Fit. I did.
No, this is the official one.
She is the official. Are you kidding? She's
No.
the official Flora Fit.
It's because just Flora Fit was taken.
Dang it.
But she's the official one. It's great. She's great. Oh, okay. Here we go.
We're calling her. She's in big trouble if she doesn't answer.
Hi.
Happy birthday!
Double.
We
Malinchar.
we just plugged you here on the podcast.
Yep. Everyone's going to start following your Instagram now. You're on the podcast.
This is exciting, guys.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
How old do you feel?
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about right now.
Yeah, we don't care how old you are.
Oh, yeah.
Honestly,
24.
It's great.
actually, we were talking about this yesterday,
Yes.
and 24 was the same age both of us gave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something about 24.
Right?
I told Jess this morning, I said, I'm the fittest I've ever been, and I feel great.
Love it.
Isn't that exciting?
That's so good.
Forget
Yeah.
what you're doing and like what your job is. Just to feel good about where you're at is amazing.
Yeah.
It's a gift in
Yeah.
itself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Any big plans for the day before we let you go?
Well, headed to Fox in the Snow for some breakfast.
Oh.
Very exciting.
Okay.
Yum.
I've been treated like a queen this morning. I
Love
love it. It feels good.
That's great.
You go, Queen. You deserve it.
Yeah.
You're
Go, Queen.
Very intentional. Thank you to all my people out there that have wished me a happy birthday. I love it. And I love you.
Aw.
How sweet.
Well, you have what's Mr. Jess doing for your birthday today?
He's taking her to Fox in the Snow.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't
He
know.
hasn't given me all the details. He likes surprises.
Love
We'll
it.
see.
Okay, that's what I was wondering because
Love
I
it.
figured he had something up his sleeve.
Of course.
Yeah.
Well,
Always.
get out there and enjoy your 24th year.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. You're sweet.
Talk to you soon.
All right.
Oh. Jeez.
I literally
How
just-
aggressive.
Hold on a second. I literally just pulled a Mallory. Don't act like this is the way I normally do it. My thumb hit the button a little sooner than I
Yeah,
preferred,
Trigger happy.
but that's kind of a regular thing with my competitive co-host over there. All right, I'll talk. Oh, she's gone.
When the conversation's over, it's over.
Yep. No need to make the person on the other line feel good. Goodbye. Speaking of Body Garage Dayton
Oh,
and
okay.
Leah and all of that great stuff. I was thinking about the importance of a person's lymphatic system the other day when I happened to get out on Sunday afternoon and play a couple of holes of golf with a business leader in the community. And we were just talking about his inability to lose weight or have the energy that he wants.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, just hold on a second. And I took my fingers and put them in those spots right below the ears.
As
and
you
then,
do when you're golfing with others.
Well, yeah. And his lymphatic system was just jammed up. And so...
Okay, so you've said that before. Can you describe what that...
Yeah, so your body, for those of you that are listening, has a lymphatic system, which is like your body's sewer system. And it's what God gave us to get toxins out of the body so that the body can keep running the way it's supposed to. I always like to think of New York City.
Okay.
I love New York City. I know you do too.
I love it.
And I think of all that has to happen in order for that city to get all of its toxins or trash out in light of how much is going on. One of my favorite things to do is walk around late at night in the city and just see how all of these restaurants and businesses are putting their trash out. It's crazy.
Yeah, well, they just put it on the street.
Yeah, it's just absolutely crazy. And then the trucks come along and they get it out. And obviously there's a sewer system underground that we can't see, but our body has that kind of system. And for most people living today, because we're not as active as we used to be 50 years ago, our lymphatic system gets jammed up or clogged up. And then toxins, whether they're environmental or biological, or they come from stress, we can't get them out. And then that's when all kinds of autoimmune problems start to happen, because almost like your exhaust system on your car, it can't get rid of the combustion.
So
the
when
exhaust.
so when you're touching a point,
Yeah.
what is it that you're feeling? Like if it's jammed up, what is that?
Yeah. Were you the kind of person that pushed on zits and had to like get rid of a zit?
Not because it gave me pleasure, just cosmetically. Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's how a lot of people are. I mean, it feels like popping a zit almost, but nothing comes to the surface. You're just trying to move it along. And so over there at Body Garage Dayton, they have a system set up where there's basically 37 different sewer lids, if we stick with the sewer analogy, where they manually massage them and get that system flowing again. And the results are absolutely like crazy. You know, last episode we talked about uncertainty,
Yes.
right? Which is stress. That's the definition of all stress. It all boils back to that one word, uncertainty. And stress produces biological toxins, right? As you're processing your fears and going through life and there is uncertainty, like there is a physical result, like there is a toxin, a physical toxin, a chemical, many chemicals actually that are produced.
Okay, so that's what you're feeling is the toxins?
Yeah.
I want to know like literally what do you feel?
It's called lymph, and it would be like the equivalent of a gel, right? That you're just feeling underneath the skin. And if you take your finger, for those of you that are watching on video, and just rub behind your ear, you can feel sometimes when those are full. And so often people come in and they're dealing with chronic inflammation or chronic pain or chronic fatigue. And it's all because they have no way to get the toxins, which put the body into a state of accelerated aging. They can't get them out. And so the lymphatic system, when we talk about like biohacking and getting to be younger than your calendar age, if your lymphatic system is not working, you're in so much trouble. And so there's states of aging, right? There's the middle where it's just you're aging every day that goes by the way you should. And then there's where you slow it down and you're not, a day is not equal. You're getting more out of your days biologically because you're getting good rest and you're taking care of your cells and you're putting your cells in an environment where they don't age or decline as fast. And then there's accelerated or rapid aging. And you usually can see someone that's in a state of accelerated aging. And often a big part of that is their lymphatic system is jammed up. And so it's just one thing that you can really focus on to help you as you navigate uncertainties.
How come nobody's talking about that?
Because it's hard to make money off of it.
Oh,
right? And so I can't tell you. So we're entering sinus/head cold season, right? And what a lot of people don't understand or realize is the body knows so much more than you know. And the body is so intelligent that when your nose starts running or you start having stuff come down the back of your throat, it's because your lymphatic system doesn't work and the body has backup plans to detox the body. And so I was just saying this the other day to someone that you need to quit taking all of these sinus medications that dries things up, because you're basically just drying up the sewer system, and the trash will sit in the sewer versus getting out. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, the last 2 generations of people living in this country have been so influenced and shaped by the pharmaceutical industry that is making crazy money off of people that and again, it's unfortunate. In too many situations, you'll tell people what they need to do so that they don't have to deal with it often. They'd rather take a pill. And the problem with that is you're just trapping toxins inside of you, and that's going to add up. And eventually, you're going to have this diagnosis called cancer that scares the crap out of you. And everybody goes, it came out of nowhere. It didn't come out of nowhere. Cancer doesn't begin with a diagnosis. And I'm not trying to be mean or insensitive because it's real and it's painful and a lot of lives are lost and people are hurt because of it. But the truth of the matter is we need to approach our health on a cellular level. We need to approach living in life from a cellular level. Everything in your body, everything is a cell or a conglomeration of cells. And when you approach life and health on a cellular level, then you understand that there's intake and there's outtake. And so like thoughts produce positive or negative emotions. And those positive or negative emotions have debris. And that debris needs to get out of your system somehow. The quality of food that you put in your body has a direct correlation to how much or how many toxins you produce and what needs to get out of the lymphatic system. Your thoughts are food. And when you're constantly entertaining negative or self-defeating thoughts, you're producing a lot of toxins. And if your lymphatic system is jammed up and those toxins can't get out, it's only a matter of time before you have chronic everything, chronic inflammation, chronic fatigue, and you set yourself up for dis-ease, a lack of ease, right? And then we try to work from behind.
So what is somebody supposed to do if they don't have a Body Garage Dayton?
Get on the website, or another person that taught us how to do it at Body Garage Dayton is the website Stop Chasing Pain. Perry Nicholson, and he's brilliant, and he's the one that has really pioneered this over the last 10 years in the United States. You can go to stopchasingpain.com if you are in the Ohio area. But we have, Body Garage Dayton has people that fly in from California, from Utah, from Florida, all over the place. And you know, it's like almost a swimming pool. When you can get the filter circulating again, you can get it on and pulling things off the surface, and you can hook up your hose and get dirt off the bottom. Like, it starts to fix itself. Maybe not immediately, but if you've been raised with a pool, that when that circulation or that filter stops, it's only a matter of time before the water gets green. And so the lymphatic system, especially going into this season, or dealing with the virus and what have you, your lymphatic system is so important. It's not even funny, because it helps all across the board. Like even from an emotional standpoint, you've got to remain open. And when we talk about uncertainty or stress tends to have us hunch over and like a boxer cover up to protect ourselves. And when you're not standing tall, like, you can look at someone, go to the mall or wherever you go, you can look at people that are in fight or flight because they're not standing tall. And so often, like when I'm getting ready in the morning, I will purposely practice like tucking my hips underneath me and getting the crown of my head, the top of my head, as close to the ceiling as possible, just to stretch everything out and give my organs like room and space. Because stress and uncertainty tends to have us like ball up, right? Like hunch over.
So how often are you getting, or is somebody supposed to be getting lymphatic flushes?
Well, it depends on the level of stress, and it depends on how healthy you are. We have people that come in that have never had anything done to their lymphatic system, and it takes 8 to 10 to 12 intentional, 20 to 30 minute sessions of someone that knows what they're doing, manually massaging and opening those areas. And again, it's hard to believe if that's your norm, being locked up, right? That sewer being clogged, then you've kind of grown used to doing other things to treat it. But once it's open, it's just a little bit of management on your part. For me, I pretty much do my own because I know where the spots are. And whether it's the 1-inch ring around your belly button or some of the lymph nodes down in your groin, or all of the stuff by the collarbone and behind the ears, like once you learn where they are, I literally can feel when mine tighten up in any area of my body. And then I'll just take my thumb, find that area and basically give it a little bit of assistance.
Yeah, it just seems like a lot for somebody, especially if they're not local, because that's a lot of sessions. You can't just fly in and get all of those sessions at once. Are there other, if you don't know can you either learn the spots and do it yourself, or does it have to be that intentional, or can you just like start putting better food in your body and better thoughts in your body?
No, you have to
drink a lot of water.
Yeah. Drinking a lot of water is important, right? If you think of a sewer, the sewer needs water, right? You can follow Perry, Stop Chasing Pain, on Instagram, and he's got 3-4 videos up a week that will teach you how to do it yourself. In an ideal world, if you can afford to have someone else work on you, then great. But if not, follow Perry at Stop Chasing Pain on Instagram, and that will take it a long way. But you've got to have your lymphatic system working, because the rate of toxins in your life isn't going to slow down. And if you're an achiever, right, the more successful you become, the more toxins you produce. I could get into, and I won't. The human body produces about 1 billion cells a day. 1 million of those billion don't take. And so they become rogue, or what we call mutant cells, which we also identify as cancer. Your rogue or mutant cells need a way to get out. And so when I start to notice that I'm having drainage for some reason, like I'll go and figure out if I missed because I was too busy or my mind was another place. The moment I start having drainage, I will go and figure out what's going on, or where I'm jammed up, like right under the eyes, on either side of the nose. If you're puffy there, that's because there's that lymphatic drainage right there on either side of your nose under your eyes is all blocked up. And so when it can't get out there, it's going to start coming down the back of your throat. So sometimes I'll eat something, and the moment I eat something, my body says, get it out. And it starts, my nose will start draining, or I'll start feeling pressure in my lymphatic system. When they find like cancer in your prostate as a man, they'll go to the lymph nodes, the lymphatic system that catches and is supposed to be getting rid of toxins, and they will pull a lymph node out and look for cancer inside of it, because your body was trying to get that rogue or mutant cell, that toxin, out of the body.
Yeah. So what does it feel like when you can be certain, or that your lymphatic system is in working order and it's clear? And
I mean, first and foremost, I would just monitor my energy and excitement for life. You were made to have energy. There's nothing that says because you're 41 that you can't have the energy of, quote unquote, a 25-year-old. The typical reason that a 41-year-old does not have the energy of a 25-year-old is when you are 25, your cells are 16 years younger than when you are 41. And that's because, we have this idea, almost like we buy something like a car or a phone, and we just use it as much as we can without any maintenance, ever taking care of it. And when it goes, it goes. Yeah. But the body doesn't have to be that way. I just told you my last telomeres test, I think I took at 38, and I came back as 29 years old. And so you can have more energy at 41 than you had at 35, depending upon how you're taking care of yourself.
I don't know if you want to go in this direction, but I feel, at least to acknowledge, I mean, I know some really active, healthy, happy people who get cancer.
Sure.
So I feel like it's a little too simple to say their lymphatic system was jammed up.
Sure.
I don't know enough to know that statement is true or false, but it feels like I know some people that really active and
Sure.
healthy on many levels.
Yeah. Well, I think you're right. And there are many complexities to cancer that we do not understand. And so the opportunity becomes, how do I physically, spiritually, emotionally, and relationally become as healthy as possible? Because if we're just looking at like BMI, body mass index, we could look at a marathon runner and they're super thin, and we would say, oh, well, that's a healthy person because they run this many miles a day. But fat is not always the indicator as to how healthy or unhealthy a person is. I think we both have seen the people that actually are in great shape because they're unhealthy emotionally or they're unhealthy relationally. And those things that are unresolved, maybe relational trauma or heartache or disappointment or unforgiveness, drive them to take care of what is the easiest to take care of, which in some cases is our physical health versus our emotional, spiritual, or relational health. And so it's not always a 1-to-1 ratio or equation, because there are so many things underneath the surface that are hard to measure by just looking at someone from the outside. There are also different kinds of cancer that are there because of what we inherited, that our parents and grandparents' genes have a lot to do with what we start off with. And so I don't want to make it sound as if it's super easy to prevent yourself from getting cancer, because there's a lot of complexities to it. But I think what we should think about, or what the idea should be, is how do I put myself in the best position to where there's a lot of life in me, and it's not just physical life. Like I love going out and running or riding the bike and like getting a great sweat. That's very important. But at the same time, there are other things that I have to focus on in order to keep my energy up and the vibe up. And a lot of that would be emotionally from my relationships. Like, you have to have healthy relationships. We know that it's been measured that social isolation does as much damage or creates as many toxins as smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. And it's really easy to have a campaign against, the tobacco industry or what have you, but you could be doing just as much damage because of how dysfunctional you are relationally as you would be if you were smoking a pack of cigarettes each day. And so I don't want to make it sound like it's easy, but what we do know is, even if you inherited something from your parents, your best chances of catching cancer early or surviving a cancer diagnosis is for you to have a lymphatic system, which is a major, major system in your body that works with all of the organs in your body to get your toxins out.
Yeah. I think the generational thing is important too. Like Evie, our oldest, I can see now, because I've been in these circles, I can see when she's jammed up in her face, which is where my husband gets jammed up too, like right under the eyes. You've already pointed to that spot. And it seems like that. It's like she's really quick to get jammed up there, which must be something that she gets from her dad.
Yeah, for sure. And we can see those patterns, and slowly medicine in the United States over the last 10 years has started to get to a place where they're asking questions about your parents. Because we know that if your parents had prostate cancer or breast cancer, you are more likely because you share their genes.
Sure.
And there's all kinds of things that we could talk about with that. But, the lymphatic system focuses on release and getting things out. And tension is a major factor when it comes to accelerated or rapid aging. And so we've got to focus on how to have the systems that are to be open and remaining open, so that we can not only live our life and do what we do and enjoy what we do, but we can do it with the right amount of vitality, the right amount of energy. And so often, we're working on this project, which we'll talk more about here in the upcoming weeks, an approach to eating and living that is metabolically oriented, like how your body converts food into energy. And I'm fascinated by watching people throughout our community, and when I'm traveling or when I'm sitting next to someone on a plane, just watching how almost like a dead animal, they're bloated in their center, right, in their gut and around their organs. And there is a direct correlation to the circumference of someone's stomach and their mortality rate, because often that means that something is jammed up, or that their visceral organs are surrounded by a lot of fat. And again, this will be in this book that we've been working on. Fat is the storage of old toxic energy. And when that old energy, that toxic energy that's like now sour, just sits up against the very organs that are responsible for you living, it's not good for your immediate energy, and it's not good for you in the long run when it comes to the number of your days.
Yeah. I just sucked in when you said that.
Well, it's you don't even have to be overly heavy in order to be bloated and for your gut to be rock hard. Mm-hmm. And so a big part of that is keeping your lymphatic system open, and just this general disposition toward openness, right? And letting go. Talking about uncertainty makes you want to, almost like a roller coaster, grab anything you can and hold on to it.
Sure.
But the key to living is letting go, right? A big key to living is letting go. And the reason for that, and how we could tie that into the lymphatic system, is you have to understand that our desire is to be in control, or to feel in control. And so when we are living in uncertain times, it's very easy to look at someone else and make them the source of our problems, versus maintaining a posture that accepts what comes our way and taking it on openly as an opportunity to grow and to become stronger, and just release people to their own immaturities or their own trauma.
Yeah.
Right. And so forgiveness, the practice of forgiveness, the science of forgiveness, has so much to do with longevity and vitality. It's not even funny. The first professional study that was released on the science or the benefits of forgiveness was in 1989. It was an official medical journal study. And then they did one 3 years later, and they did another one 6 years later. And they could find, and they would see where a person's psychology and physiology changed completely when they had the ability to forgive someone for something that person did. Worthington, and I'm trying to think of his first name. It's like Ernest or something like that. He published this in 1989 and had studied forgiveness for 10 years. And interesting story, in the midst of him studying, he's a PhD, the benefits of forgiveness, someone murdered his mother.
Oh my gosh, what?
Yeah, and he tells the story of how studying forgiveness for 10 years allowed him to forgive this person almost immediately, and how that served his body and his psychology in having the tool set or the mindset, the tools to let this person go. And interesting enough, he said earlier in his life, the only professor that gave him a B in a class, he had more trouble because he did not have the tools forgiving the professor that gave him the B versus the young man that took his mother's life.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's fascinating, but
what a great little case study for his research.
Yeah, so some of what he said that I remember in his research was that one of the things that we don't understand about forgiveness is we think that we have to be okay with what that person did, or like we have to accept it and quote unquote forgive it. But he said that's not what forgiveness is. Forgiveness is acknowledging that is their immaturity or their problem or their trauma, and it's not okay, but I'm just going to release it and not hold on to it in my skin anymore. Yeah. And that often forgiveness requires an extra step of having compassion or empathy for that person as to why they did what they did.
Ugh.
Well, when it comes to an emotionship, right, that we talk about all the time on the podcast.
On Emotionships, the podcast.
Yes. It's the energy.
Yeah.
Right? So that young man, for whatever reason, had the life that he had that ended up, taking another person's life. And Worthington had to acknowledge that was his junk, and that he was going to release that energy versus holding that energy. And all of the science of forgiveness just gets into how devastating holding on to that kind of energy is for your body.
Oh my goodness. I mean, I'm absolutely on board with everything you're saying. It's just so hard.
Why do you think it's hard?
Because it just feels...
What aspect of it is hard in your mind?
You don't think it's hard?
Oh, I'm curious in your thoughts.
Oh.
I definitely think it can be hard.
I think what you're saying about being able to acknowledge like what they did was not right. And so forgiving this person doesn't mean that I'm condoning the behavior, because it can be so, there are things that people do to other people that it's literally life altering, like the trauma. And I mean, when I was telling you, when someone asked me my age, my immediate thought is 24.
Right.
It's not necessarily because of how I feel. It's because I had a traumatic experience when I was 24. And so that's like locked in my brain. And the amount of like therapy, empty chair type stuff that I did to try and forgive this person, I mean, it's insane. And at the end of the day, like I'm the one that's chained up,
sure,
right? In like the unforgiveness, he's off living his life, doing whatever. And so I've heard that before, that forgiving someone, it like allows you to be free from the behavior. But even still, sometimes I think about how this person treated me and I'm like, oh, that jerk, you know? And it's been a lot of years, 12 years or something. So
often, right, when you and I are talking to people through the avenue of another responsibility that we have, like as a counselor, if you were talking to yourself and counseling yourself through that, how would you diagnose that? What would you say as to why you have a hard time letting that person go?
I hate where this has gone.
Sorry.
That's okay.
That's how I get myself through these things. Like I put myself across the way.
Well, it's different because I'm in a healthy place now. So
sure. But there's probably someone listening in a very similar situation and is interested in how you got through it or what you would say to them.
Well, it reminds me of the episode that we did on soul ties.
Yeah.
Because there was definitely a soul tie that needed to be broken again and again and again.
Yeah.
With this person. But it's crazy to think about. I wouldn't change it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't change that experience. I mean, it was incredible. I moved to Australia. I literally moved to Australia because of this heartache.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to escape it. I can feel it
as you're talking about it.
It was, I mean, it was insanely traumatic, but, the level, like the amount of like introspection and like work that I did in my own emotional health because I felt so shattered, like I would have never done that if it weren't for what transpired.
Yeah.
Am I answering the question? I can't remember.
Yeah, no, I think so. I think where I would take it, or the question I would ask myself if I got put on my own couch, right?
Right.
Which is something we do. is what was already going on energetically from your childhood or generationally from your mom or your grandmother or whomever that set you up to draw that situation to yourself. And then how do I get around or escape the danger of making what that person did to me the real cause versus the gap or the hole or the inadequacy that was in me that drew that to me in the first place.
Can you say that? Can you summarize the last part again? I was with you and then it got deep.
Yeah. I think the question that I would ask myself is, how do I avoid the danger in thinking that that energy just happened to find me and create this crater size hole in me, and instead say, where was I? What did I inherit generationally that set me up to energetically draw that situation to myself, which happened to be a person that was a certain level of energy, right, with their thoughts and their beliefs and all of those things. What was there prior to that whole event happening that allowed that event to be a reality? So, I don't get offended when, a little kid says something. Kids just say things. I remember when Charlie was young, he was in the grocery store with Amy, and there was a gentleman that looked like Santa Claus. Like, speaking of big bellies, he just had this really big belly. And they walked by, Charlie and Amy walked by him, and he said, "Look, Mom, he's having a baby."
Oh, jeez.
Now, I have not had a belly like that, but I would imagine that would be funny if a 3-year-old or 4-year-old said that, and I wouldn't be that offended by it because it's just a 3 or a 4-year-old. What I see, speaking of the science of forgiveness, with those deep wounds, I see that something was already there that drew that situation drew that situation in and made it a reality. And then that energy spoke to that inadequacy, and it seemed devastating, and as if it was that person that did it. But that person that said that thing or did that thing just spoke to what was already there.
Yeah.
And so.
Yeah. Well, and I definitely did not have the tools or the resources to understand any of that.
Right.
And nobody around me did either. And so when I started seeing a therapist to try and work through and start healing, I started out in therapy very defensive of my family.
Yeah.
They have nothing to do with this. Literally, I said that. They have nothing to do with this because I had no idea. And I think a lot of, especially young people, we grow up thinking our worlds are meant to be this Hallmark movie. Right. Relationships are beautiful and perfect and, end in this lovely marriage and our families are perfect. And it's just not, that doesn't mean that all of these things are bad, but they're imperfect. And I had a very hard time coming to terms with that.
Yeah.
And so.
Why do you think that? Why? Obviously you're 2 from an Enneagram perspective. And so you love to be supportive, right? And loyalty is important.
I didn't want anyone else to feel blame or shame for my stuff. This isn't my mom's fault. This isn't my dad's fault. This is my grandma's fault. And it isn't. It's I came into the world with their stuff already in me that they got from there,
Sure.
A lot of it was not intentional, but that was really hard for me to acknowledge, the imperfections of just generationally, the imperfections that I started my life with.
Yeah. Well, and if I had to think of one tool that could help better position people to keep everything from sticking to them, it would be forgiveness, right? I don't look, I'm at a place in my life where I don't look at anyone else when it comes to what I'm dealing with, how hard things are, or whether or not my potential or my future is going to be affected. It's me. It's nobody else. I could, I understand that because of the position of responsibility that I hold, I'm not always going to be understood. And people criticize me, and that's okay. Like, I criticize myself. I realize that I make mistakes, and there are often times where I look back on a situation and say, wow, if I could do that today, knowing what I know now, I would do it differently. But that positions me to move forward faster and biologically to be 9 years younger than my calendar age, because my problems are nobody else's fault. If someone was immature or made a bad decision that drastically changed my life, I think I'm at a point where I just realize that I can accept that, let that be their stuff, and then, the next thing for me is like, what now? My son's basketball coach, who's very accomplished and a friend of mine, just says next play. And that's kind of a thing in professional sports. Like, you can't control everything in what went right or what went wrong, but you can step up and be a part of the next play.
Yeah. I think one of the first of all, I agree with you that so much of life is about forgiveness. But it's also a process. Like,
Sure.
I don't think it's something, and I'm not saying that you're saying this, but where you can wake up and say like, okay, like, I've washed my hands clean of it. That's their stuff, done. At least in my experience, it's a process where you have to kind of give yourself the time and the grace to let it be kind of unstuck from you. Are you about to read me something?
Well, no, I'm going to validate what you're saying. What did I say his first name was?
You said Ernest.
Everett.
Oh, okay.
I wasn't too far off.
No,
I knew it was an old man's name. Now probably a hipster name.
Everett is for sure a hipster name.
Yeah. But it was an old man's name before it was hipster.
Most of them are.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right. And basically, they're talking about in all of these studies that it does take, it literally, forgiveness has to be a practice. It's like everything else. I enjoy golf, but I can't go out and golf well just when I feel like golfing well. And the same is true with forgiveness. Mm-hmm. Forgiveness, in a lot of the research that I saw when I was looking at the science of forgiveness, and as I've studied it over the years, says it's a practice. Yeah. And it's something that you like actively have to practice.
So what is it like for you? Well, I feel like I know how you're going to answer this, so surprise me.
Sure.
Because I think it's one thing to forgive people who hurt us, but especially for a lot of us who are pretty performance driven, what is it like for you to forgive yourself?
Yeah, there's a tremendous amount of research around the idea of forgiving self. I think the key, or the emotionship to it, is to find the connection, the emotion that would keep you from releasing whatever you're dealing with. And again, this is super tied into the lymphatic system, because your lymphatic system has to deal with unforgiveness and the emotions, the hormones that are produced from you not being able to let things go. Unforgiveness produces anger. Anger wreaks havoc on the body, to include heart disease. Just pathogens, hormones are created when you're angry, because anger is a motivator. It can be healthy, but it can also be unhealthy to move you forward and to get you out of a situation. And so the power of forgiving self really stimulates or comes out of, originates is the right word, out of recognition that my best is good enough, that I can't live up to anyone else's standards for my life. And that's often self-imposed. I'm always blown away by how much we think other people are thinking about our life or other people's standards for us. That's really a mirage. Mm-hmm. And we live chained underneath those illusions that other people have these standards or these things that they want us to live up to. And in some cases, that is true of unhealthy people, that they do have these unhealthy expectations that they need you to meet. But that's what I'm saying about forgiveness. Forgiveness is the most difficult for forgiveness for me is forgiving self. I don't hold on to a lot of things. It's not difficult for me to forgive other people, because I have to forgive you if I've given you the power to run or ruin my life. But if I don't give you the power to run or ruin my life, like I've had hard things happen to me. I've dealt with betrayal on epic levels, creating a lot of emotional turmoil and disappointment, and in some cases, thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars. But at the end of the day, you've got to give people the power to hurt you. And you do that with people you love and people that you're close to. But even when that's the case, once a mistake is made, intentional or unintentional, you got to let it go, because holding on to it doesn't help. It only makes your life that much more difficult. And so when it comes to self-forgiveness, I think it just comes down to breaking free from the generational trauma that says our value is directly connected to what we can produce, how we can perform, or how we can make others happy. If I realize that my value does not come from making other people happy or always being perfect, well, then I can forgive myself and get over it pretty quickly, because there's no power behind it. And again, this is an emotionship. When we say the real reason everything happens for a reason, and it's why I asked you about how you would coach someone with your own situation that happened when you were 24, there's got to be power behind, there's got to be something holding that unforgiveness in. The moment I get rid of the power, the unforgiveness goes. So you ruined my life. I was reading in one of these studies about infidelity and how Everett Worthington coaches people through infidelity. Infidelity is not good, right? But some people recover differently from it because of the level of power they gave their spouse, or the position they put their spouse in as to the center of that other person's world. And I would just say that just because someone is a spouse, or this happens with parents and children, or parents and grandchildren all the time, we make the mistake when we make our grandchildren the center of our life. We make a mistake when we make our children the center of our life. If I make you the center of my life, I give you a level of power that allows you to manipulate me, and that's bad news. We had an elders meeting last night, and one of the questions that came up was the motivation for having certain things in place, or certain lines in place, that when people cross them, a conversation is initiated. Like, it's not punishment, but it's just like standards. And what do you do when the standard is violated? And as you know, someone spoke up and said, well, I'm just struggling with why we would ask someone to move on if there are plenty of seats here and we're not interested in their money. And my question to them in return was, at what point in time is a parent liable for their children's behavior when they allowed the child, who in most cases are 25% of their age, to dictate to them what was going to happen? And so there's a level of responsibility with the person that is supposed to be in charge that gives that person power or not. And so the reason why I think self-forgiveness can become easier, or forgiving others can become easier, is because we have the ability to look at the power behind forgiveness and say, here's why I would be tempted to be unforgiving toward this person. I dealt with this in my own family growing up. My dad had, an affair early on in life. And even then, I can remember my grandmother driving me to school in 6th grade. And just our schedule would change, and she would have to help get us from this place to that place because my parents' marriage was, all over the place, and owning businesses. It was just tough. I can remember being in the back of her car, pulling up to middle school, and thinking to myself, my dad's stuff is my dad's stuff. I refuse to take it personally. And I feel fortunate that somehow, some way, I was able to have that mindset then. But I just realized, and I'm thankful that I did, he had his own thing, and he was going through his own thing. And I wasn't going to, I was tempted to have the thought that if he loved me more, he would not do this, right?
Sure.
And that's how I think most kids interpret it. But I was fortunate enough just to say, like, I don't really know, but I'm not going to give him the power to ruin my life as if him doing what he needs to do is what's going to enable me to do what I need to do.
Right.
And instead, I was able to take on those difficult situations, and it was difficult. I can remember, having tears well up in my eyes because I was the kid whose dad wasn't there at those tryouts, and I got cut because I didn't have anybody to put pressure on the coach in order for me to make the team, when I felt like I was clearly better than a handful of the guys that made the team because their dad was standing there and going out of his way to influence the coach.
Right.
But I wouldn't wish that away. Not even close. I'm happy that everything that has happened in my life has happened the way that it's happened. It's made me who I am, which is far from perfect, but I'm okay with that.
Sure.
And I can live light and loose most of the time.
How do you, you talk about not giving someone the power to kind of knock you down or ruin your life or whatever kind of language you want to use. What's the balance with, this person is not my world. I am my own individual person, whether it's a spouse, whether it's your parent, whether it's your sibling, being in a vulnerable, intimate relationship while maintaining your own sense of self.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think if I had to boil it down to one word, it would be expectations, or my second word would be boundaries. What are the healthy expectations and boundaries that you've set together to say what is, health in relationships comes down to, in my opinion, those two things. It comes down to boundaries and expectations. Mm-hmm. And the older you get, the clearer those things become. Mm-hmm. Often when we're younger, we have unrealistic expectations, and our boundaries have been formed and built out of our traumas.
Sure.
And so hopefully the more we grow and the freer we become, those boundaries and expectations become perfectly balanced and allow us to be completely whole and content with ourselves, which allows us to love the other person unconditionally because we don't need their love in order to be who we are. The best lovers, the best relationships come from two people that are whole and don't need the other person's love in order to exist.
Sure.
That allows me to love you unconditionally because I don't need you to be or behave a certain way in order for me to do what I'm called to do.
Yeah. That's good. I have one more question.
Yeah.
When it comes to your children, especially, and unforgiveness or forgiveness, how do you model and teach the importance of forgiveness while also allowing them to learn lessons from the mistakes?
Yeah.
So not continuing to hold it over their head, remember when you did this, because that doesn't feel like forgiveness.
Sure.
But also you want your kids to learn from what they've experienced or done.
Yeah, sure. I think of two quotes that different mentors have given me throughout my life. And one was, choose to sin, choose to suffer. And the idea for the word sin there, I don't want to make it too religious. It just means missing the mark. Mm-hmm. And so I think of darts when I think of the word hamartia, which is the word for sin. And it's the further you are away from the bullseye, the greater the consequences. And so I want to teach my kids that failure and difficulty doesn't have to be personal. It can be practical. That when we miss the mark, practically speaking, there are going to be consequences to that. The further I am away from the bullseye, more than likely, the greater the consequences are going to be. So I was raised in a home where my parents did as good as they could. Hopefully I'm building upon that, and hopefully my children will build upon what I gave them. Especially in Christian circles, and it makes me sad, honestly. Failures become personal, and I don't think they need to be. Yeah. I don't meet too many people that F things up on purpose. And so you create an environment where guilt and shame can breed and run rampant when you make people's mistakes personal versus practical. We don't need to do that because very few people go out of their way to make a mistake. And so when a parent says, "Why did you do that? How could you do that? Are you stupid?" I mean, talk about compounding the ramifications and the consequences of that. We just took something that was very practical, right? Like a 2-year-old trying to take care of what they think is their toy or their food, or they don't like the attention that their little sibling just got. Like, it's very practical. It's human needs stuff. And we make it personal and we shame them or manipulate them, which especially in religious circles tends to become, the new tools to behavior modification, shame, guilt, manipulation. And we just bury people. Yeah. And we have them associating their mistakes with their identity. And then they grow older and they can't get out of their mistakes because it's tied into their identity that came from mom or dad who thought that spirituality or Christianity had more to do with what other people saw or did not see than who you actually were on the inside, which has everything to do with like your root and who you are when nobody's looking. Yeah. And so, that comes from what a mentor said to me, choose to sin or choose to suffer. And then another thing that another mentor said that I quoted recently is sorry is good, change is better. How do we get to a point where, we're not taking this so personally that all of our energy, and I do this, right? I'm a 3. And so how other people feel about me or think about me is important to me. I can get in a cycle of saying sorry because it's so important to me that they know that wasn't my intention because I don't want to hurt anybody. If you're not careful, sorry starts to lose its meaning, and I get tired of saying sorry because volume, right? Frequency, volume dilutes strength. Mm-hmm. And so if you're saying sorry a lot, then you almost feel trapped because the power of the word is gone. And so one of the things that I've repeated that mentor said to me is, sorry's good, change is better. And it's not that I want to manipulate them into change. I want to free them up from the feelings of remorse and regret and guilt and shame whenever possible. You don't have to walk around with your head down or hold it over yourself for days or weeks, in some cases years and decades, sure. Right? We know people like this. Sure. That the little thing they did isn't even on the radar compared to how they responded to it, because they were conditioned through guilt and shame and manipulation. And so parents play such an important role, answering your question, when it comes to teaching what real forgiveness and letting go is. And when you get into Everett Worthington's work on forgiveness and some of the other people that have studied and promoted forgiveness, it's living within the context of release, not holding things against yourself because it doesn't help. Recognize what you did wrong, recognize where it came from, and then develop the ability through consistent practice to let it go. Carrying other people's stuff around or carrying your own stuff around when you don't have to doesn't help.
It's exhausting.
Yeah, it is. And it puts you in this rapid stage of aging where you on the calendar are 41 years old, but you're really 65. Mm-hmm. Right? And we see that a lot.
Sure. Speaking of releasing things.
Yes. We have something to give away, ladies and gentlemen.
We have to follow up on our giveaway.
We have to follow up on our giveaway. So we have this Aviator Nation hat that we did do our drawing for. And
the winner. Is there a drum roll?
There's something on here. Let's see. Hold on. I'm gonna work through all the buttons.
Okay. Nope.
Crickets. Nope. What is that? A harp. Nope. Kind of.
Wrong kind of drum roll, but
the winner is Chris Wilkins. Chris, this could not go to, yes, we have clapping happening in the audience, the live listening audience. Yeah. This could not go to a more appropriate person than Mr. Wilkins. Mr. Wilkins, thank you for listening to the podcast. Thank you for participating. We will get this to you.
Way to go.
Way to go, Chris. That's a wrap. Episode 41 of Emotionships, the podcast, where we talk about the real reason everything happens for a reason.